2025 Federal Spending Bill, OBBBA. Full breakdown of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. In 2025, Congress introduced and passed one of the most ambitious, wide-reaching, and controversial pieces of federal legislation in recent history, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, commonly referred to as the 2025 Spending Bill. This legislation serves as both a fiscal blueprint and an ideological manifesto. It outlines the federal government's spending, tax policy, and economic strategy for the coming decade, with sweeping changes across healthcare, education, national defense, immigration, energy, and more. Let's break it down, section by section, to understand what's really in this bill and how it could reshape the future of the United States. Tax cuts and revenue policy. At the heart of the 2025 spending bill is a massive package of tax reforms aimed at stimulating economic growth, returning money to taxpayers, and restructuring how the federal government collects revenue. Key provisions: permanent extension of the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, TCJA, including favorable rates for businesses and individuals. New tax benefits for working-class Americans, including full exemption from federal taxes on tips and deductions for domestic car loan interest. Creation of MAGA savings accounts, tax-advantaged accounts for parents to invest up to $1,000 annually per child. A 5% remittance tax on money sent abroad from the U.S., aimed at foreign transfers. While these measures are popular among middle-income families and business owners, they are estimated to reduce federal revenue by over $5 trillion over 10 years. Spending reductions and offsets. To counterbalance the tax cuts, the bill introduces approximately $2 trillion in spending cuts. Key targets: Medicaid, work requirements for recipients, tightened income thresholds, and elimination of coverage for gender-affirming care. SNAP, food assistance, new asset tests, mandatory employment or training for able-bodied adults. Federal workforce, a hiring freeze in non-defense agencies with attrition-based downsizing. Foreign aid, cuts to non-military aid programs in over 30 countries. The goal, according to proponents, is to shrink the size of government and reward work over dependency. Critics argue it will hurt the most vulnerable, especially the elderly, low-income families, and disabled individuals. Healthcare system reforms. The bill includes far-reaching changes to public healthcare programs. Medicaid reform adds work or volunteer requirements for recipients aged 19 to 55. Ban on Medicaid-funded gender transition care, even for adults. Caps on federal funding for children's hospitals that provide abortion-related services. Elimination of certain subsidies under the Affordable Care Act. Pushing enrollees to the private insurance market. Healthcare analysts warn that millions could lose coverage, particularly in states that rely heavily on federal Medicaid expansion. Education and student finance. The bill also targets federal education policy, particularly student financial aid, elimination of subsidized undergraduate student loans, new merit-based formula for Pell Grant eligibility, reducing access for students from lower-income families, reintroduction of interest on student loans during in-school deferment, defunding of divisive concept curriculum programs, including critical race theory and gender theory, in federally funded institutions. Supporters argue this will restore academic rigor and fiscal discipline, while opponents view it as an attack on access to education. Defense and border security expansion. $150 billion in new defense funding focused on drone warfare, cyber capabilities, and modernization of nuclear forces. $69 billion allocated to border security, including wall construction, digital surveillance systems, and expansion of immigration and customs enforcement, ICE personnel. expanded detention capacity for asylum seekers and unauthorized border crossers. This section of the bill aligns with the America First security doctrine, emphasizing sovereignty, physical barriers, and enhanced immigration enforcement. Energy and environmental policy rollbacks. The 2025 spending bill significantly alters energy and environmental policy by rolling back clean energy tax credits, including those for electric vehicles and solar panel installation, opening new federal lands for oil and gas drilling, reducing regulatory oversight on fossil fuel pipeline construction, accelerating permitting for energy infrastructure. These measures are intended to boost domestic energy independence, though environmental advocates warn they will reverse progress on climate goals. Economic and debt projections. National debt. The Congressional Budget Office projects that the bill will add between $3.8 and $5.7 trillion to the national debt over the next 10 years, depending on final implementation and revenue trends. Economic growth. Short-term economic growth is expected to improve due to increased consumer spending and business investment. However, long-term concerns remain over inflationary pressure, interest rates, and the sustainability of entitlement programs. Political impact and controversy. The bill passed the House narrowly, with no Democratic support. In the Senate, it faces intense scrutiny, particularly from moderates concerned about healthcare cuts and deficit expansion. The bill has become a lightning rod in national politics, viewed by supporters as a return to American strength and self-reliance, and by critics as a reckless dismantling of the social safety net. Final thoughts. The 2025 spending bill, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, is more than a budget. It's a vision for the future of the United States. It prioritizes economic growth, national security, traditional values, and limited government, but not without significant trade-offs. Whether you see it as a bold course correction or a radical upheaval, one thing is certain: it will have a lasting impact on how Americans live, work, learn, and heal.